All right, George is being weird, and he's talking about
Good job.
C2C.
Part 2.
George, I want to make part of this, from the audience, I want to make part of this the irony of paper tickets are hard to track.
We know that. We knew that going in, but it's fine.
What's the date?
5/4/18. Number 2.
Is that Friday? What is that?
Friday, yep.
Friday?
First Friday.
What'd you call it?
All four conferences are first Fridays this year.
Breakfast with
Yep.
Champions.
Already booked them. 5/4 is the next one. Okay, Breakfast with Champions. So, real quick, what happened was I had a meeting with Mike Jones, who's a good friend of mine, former,
He hangs out here, by the way.
I know, he's got a radio show here on
Broken Table.
Sundays. And so, but he also coached my son in football when we first moved to St. Louis, and we've been friends ever since. But talked to Mike. We hung out a few weeks ago, and I was going to follow up. I was actually going to ask him to come and introduce me at the conference on this Friday, but it's Super Bowl weekend, and of course he probably wouldn't be in town. So then the following Thursday, I bump into Kerry Robinson at Mastermind, who's former Cardinal and was on the Albert Pujols World Series team. And so I got this idea, and I said, and I know some other people with connections. I said, well, the next conference we should have a bunch of people who won multiple awards in sports. So I got to talking to a couple people, and somebody has a lead on a list of local celebrity athletes that can be at the show. Of course, it's paid, but it's not as expensive as we wanted to, as you would think it would be. So we're starting to compile the list and see who we can get and get everybody on the list. My challenge is with the going into this first conference, we didn't have any paid sponsorships. So basically bootstrap the whole thing, and what we didn't bootstrap, we paid for with, of course, ticket purchases, which makes you white knuckle it up until the last minute, of course, right?
Yep.
So even with sponsorships, a lot of times, because at the end of the day, it's about butts in the seats. So my biggest challenge is I'm not very good at asking the ask, and then the second my big challenge is how do I go about getting sponsorships for something like that, even with a lineup, which I think is going to be fantastic, because the fourth person that we're talking to is Aeneas Williams. So
Who's the third?
It's Mike Jones, Kerry Robinson, Whitey Herzog, and Aeneas Williams. Stop it. Don't start with the who with the
What's
Mike
the
Jones.
point of the conference?
The point of the conference, that's a good question. So everything is centered around networking. So each one of these famous athletes had to transition out of professional sports into the business world. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn the wheel and we're going to ask them how to talk about what it was like to go from being this famous person. You still have to get back out and network, and how celebrity helped you, hurt you, or whatever the case may be. So everything comes back to networking in some kind of way.
So it's a conference for men?
No, that was my second question.
Because it sounds like it.
Exactly.
I'm sorry. How did that sound like it was a conference for me?
Are you
I've already gotten that twice already.
No, I missed something.
Because it's athletes.
No, I'm not.
You're
Because it's
such a
sports.
man.
Because listen, my editor in my book, I did a sports reference and she flipped out.
Yep.
So nobody wants to hear about Michael Jordan. I was like,
A lot of people do.
I know, but a lot of people don't.
That's why I asked you if that was your audience, because of the perfect audience
Because
for
of
men,
the,
and it's
well,
like, I would go to something like that.
if I could get Jackie Joyner Kersey, I would love to have
But
it.
is it because it's men talking, or because it's
It's
athletes
because
talking?
it's sports and it's all men. I mean, everything on the billing is going to be men. Say it's all testosterone.
And that was my second question, because
So why not gear it toward men?
I could, but then I would be that would not be a good marketing idea. If all men show up, that's fine, but I would never just strictly market it just for men, because that's kind of shooting yourself in one of the other foot.
I mean, baseball has a huge female following. So
It does. I
I've-
understand that.
I've attended the charity event that Whitey Herzog emceed, and he was amazing, and everybody just loved
So
it.
on my team, I have two women, and they both said they wouldn't come. That was the second thing I was going to get to.
Seems like
said they wouldn't be interested in coming.
But wouldn't you have males that are non-athletes that wouldn't come?
we have males that are probably not sports people that would.
Yeah, that's why. That's why.
That are not into sports, they may not come. And those are the biggest questions. Those are the two biggest questions that I have. I would think that with the people that are going to be in the room that day, that getting a sponsor wouldn't be a big deal. But then, how do we make it non-exclusionary to women?
Why do you,
What's cost?
why do you
Ticket
care
cost.
to do that? Why don't you
Those are
just-
going to be, boy, 97 to start, or maybe 147 is another number we're toying around with.
What's your
VIP
How
tickets,
many?
maybe.
The same 150,
150 people?
150 shares. That's all we got. That's why the price is going up versus this time, because we got to pay for speakers.
I just have one more comment.
Yes.
I wouldn't be ashamed to have it just be targeted toward men, even though you're not gonna say that. Cause you only got 150 seats, you just wanna, if you wanna fill them, you're more likely to fill them with men. And,
I agree.
you have other things that aren't that slanted, so.
I agree.
Nancy, you weren't saying it as a negative. You
Not
were
at
saying
all.
it as an
No,
I'm
I
saying
understand
target
that.
your market.
But
Yes,
but
yeah.
we are giving away a big chunk of our market by doing this, and it's only our second conference, and we're running the risk of shrinking our market for the third one because of the way that we market the second one.
Well, if you have more speakers, it's going to cost you more, right?
Well, yeah, but we can always play around with this list. I mean, if there is a way for us to get a woman who,
Well, I think my biggest question is,
yeah,
if you're at this 97 to 147 price,
mm-hmm.
are you making money at that? Even still paying the speakers? Because every added speaker you bring in is
You
going
get
to.
with the
sponsors.
sponsor, yes.
Oh, okay.
Even without a sponsor, there's a smaller budget there, but I mean smaller profit there.
What if you add like a beer brunch to this?
A beer brunch.
No, I'm serious.
Yeah,
Just
we
do it
do.
on my Sunday.
We could do. We definitely do like a Bloody
I think
Mary
it's
bar or
a really
something.
good idea.
But those, like I said, those are my two biggest challenges, my two biggest questions. We're in negotiation trying to get everybody's schedule locked down. So we're almost definitely going to do it, but I'm still kind of got my worries about how it's going to look.
George, do you have a relationship with the speakers that they will do it as a percentage of ticket sales, or are you fronting the speaker cost?
So, okay, so here's a bigger picture thing. Two of the people, Carrie and Mike, probably not going to be that expensive. When you start talking to about Whitey Herzog and possibly Willie McGee or somebody like that, then the price goes up.
I get you, but is the idea to get speakers at a rate, or the speakers at a percentage of the ticket sales?
At a rate, because that's the way that they're the person that we're talking to represents the speakers.
Okay.
And so he's already got a list. He sent us a list of the speakers that he has. The good news is that the person that is over the speakers is a friend of Sean's, who is one of my partners in this. Yes.
Right.
You know who I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about.
Yes, exactly.
But so that's what I was curious about was, do you need that high a caliber of speak? So are you focused on the champion part, or are you focused on the CCC,
Yeah.
right? The networking.
I am
Because-
focused on
Yeah.
focused on the champion part. Now another option would be to do this as not part of the normal franchise and do it as something else.
Right.
And say, hey, we're going to do this blast of a men's thing for whatever on a Saturday and continue to put another CCC together with what we've already come up with and keep the momentum going there and call this something else.
What did you charge for your beer brunch?
$40.
$40.
Who was there?
How many did you sell?
All those people?
30
Sold out quick.
Where was this?
at my brewery.
Center
Oh, that's right. That's right. I remember now. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And who was the chef? City.
City Street Cafe.
Oh, but see, that sells 20
30.
tickets right there.
What's
Oh
that?
yeah, I mean this was now we priced it very low to do a trial run. Now the next time is to raise it to 60 to 70 and sell twice as many tickets.
Right.
This could be a good audience though to do
Mhm.
another trial run,
Mhm.
package it with even more stuff.
Yeah.
We could open up a
Where
bar.
you're going to host it here at Medici?
You need a
Yes.
hockey. You need a hockey
Yeah.
guy there.
Yeah, we'll get Brett Hall.
Hey George, are you going to frame the subject matter for the speakers, or are you just going to give them, we'd like you to speak and?
So here's another way that we're trying to mitigate costs a little bit. Is so the way that it's set up, we have two keynote speakers, and the panel is designed. We have a panel at the end with Q&A from the audience. So if we could get these guys to just be on the panel and have one keynote speaker, then maybe we can reduce the cost and say, hey, we just want you to come in for the Q&A session with the audience. What does that look like? Okay, part of it is as me raising my profile as a author and a speaker. If I can find a way to bring people in, and they're basically the opening act for me, who nobody really knows, but I'm still the keynote there, which raises my visibility and my credibility as well. So that's a part of it too.
Because I think the message, if it's Breakfast of Champions and you're talking about, my word of the day, pivoting from the athletic world to another career.
Yes.
Kerry Robinson's message is going to be different than Aeneas Williams' message because Kerry didn't make millions of dollars.
Right.
So Aeneas is doing it from a passion part, and Kerry's doing it from a necessity.
Correct.
So
And Mike Jones is somewhere in the middle.
somewhere, yeah, right, and he's somewhere in the middle. So I think it would be helpful, instead of having, the same people talk about the same thing over and over,
Mm-hmm.
if you could kind of frame, and you don't want to say, hey, Kerry, you weren't as successful, so we want you to talk about that.
But we got it on tape now. You already said it.
But I do think that would be something to keep in mind when you're trying to line up the speakers and what they're going to be speaking about.
Yes, and that's the big question. Are we going to do the panel, or and just do one keynote, or are we going to try to get all these? I don't think necessarily want all these guys to speak.
So let's quick focus group.
Yep.
If we had Kerry, Mike, Whitey, and Aeneas, who out of this group would buy a ticket?
I want to know more.
Wow.
I would not buy anything with Roddy Herzog.
I don't think I'd buy a ticket either. Like, this doesn't interest me.
That's what I wanted to know.
Maybe not the best focus group, but I would agree.
Yeah.
That's enough.
Tell me,
These are people that support me already.
what's the
That's why I
issue with
would
Whitey?
Right.
It's the old coach in me. It's the old stubborn German in me. He gave up on the Cardinals in the middle of the season, and he left his team, and and he built his own team, and he said that he couldn't get through him anymore. Well, you built that team, Tom, and you gave up on him.
Yeah.
He's dead to me.
He's dead to me. Ever since that, he's dead to me.
If I could dive in, something that I would be interested in would having you and Mike Jones sit up there on the stage and talk business, Super Bowl, entrepreneurship, speaking off, like that would interest me, and I would come to that at a lower ticket price.
Fireside chat.
Like, yeah, like a
Well,
fireside
that's
chat.
what the whole thing is. That's what we do at the end of every conference.
But I think the sticking point is going to be the price.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the reasons I was saying that the brunch with beer and making a little bit more of a experience around it could be a lot more appealing. You add it right into your cost, but there's more to it than that. Because going to one of his brunches with the beer, I would do that in a heartbeat.
Right.
And if you added in, oh, by the way, while you're doing that, you're going to have a performance or something and a really cool networking opportunity, that adds a little bit more value to it as well. But just as the standard presentation outward type of stuff, at $150, I wouldn't buy it.
George, what do you see as the thematic thread between this and Friday's deal?
Networking is the only thematic thread. That we just have to continue to steer everything back that way. I think that this pilot event is with the people that are going to be in the room on Friday in the networking community. It's going to be hard to duplicate that.
Right.
It's going to be hard to replicate what we're about to do on Friday unless we do the exact same thing again.
So that's where. So when you say that, that's where I wonder. Well, what is Whitey going to teach me about networking? I don't have the baggage that you have.
Sure, absolutely.
I know I have baggage, Tom.
But these guys like Kerry Robinson and Mike Jones, who are building lives after reasonably successful sports careers.
Correct.
That's a little more instructive, and the champions hook is sort of, to me, kind of disincentive, because it's sort of like, well, I don't have the champions hat to go wearing
not
around
relatable.
town. It's not, that's a ticket to open doors.
Okay.
I want to hear from. I'm not sure.
All right, I got it.
And there's
I heard everything I need to
there's a lot of YouTube videos and books and things out where people who are successful in sports sort of translate the ethic that they brought to as an athlete, and how people can apply it in the entrepreneur world. So you may not be an Olympian, but you can apply the discipline of an athlete. I mean, were they going to be speaking anything along those lines? Would that be?
I mean, I'm sure there's going to be some overlap in that, and I think that would probably be a natural way of talking, because that's what they know. But I haven't really sat down and kind of drawn out any specific curriculum.
Would that be of interest to the potential attendees that you want to attract?
Well, that's always a good question.
Yeah.
That's always a good question. But based on what I'm hearing from the room is that it's more about who's on the list and cost, and gender. Those are the three things that are kind of
what you're going to
I hear
discuss.
I think it's the opposite. I think it's mostly about what you're the topic.
Yeah, right.
You sold almost 100 tickets about connecting and networking.
Sure.
With not a high ticket name on the list, right? Not a single, except for Brian Lunt. Right? Like you had you use grassroots people that are known. They're well known in the connect for what the topic is. I don't know.
if
Seems
this was
like
framed more,
there's a disconnect between the people and the content.
yeah,
I got you.
where did I screw up, or how has the transition been difficult? Where it's more of an interesting conversation,
Right.
as opposed to I've been a Super Bowl champion. How great is that? It's,
Right.
It's more standard vanilla,
Right.
as opposed to something that's going to be different.
Right. And that was the
I think
idea.
that's the
Just
challenge.
go with something that's like, what has networking done for you since you transitioned?
Yeah, is celebrity
Yeah.
a good thing or a bad thing?
Yes, exactly. That was kind of some of the
That's
things
a
that
little
we were
bit.
throwing
Right.
around.
Yeah.
But no.
So how,
This audience isn't going.
No,
for
I see that.
right?
but it's getting more interesting to me.
Yeah.
As we cook it, it's. I don't think you should punt it. I think
I'm not punting it. I'm just
sorry
doing
for
it.
the
pun
pun
intended,
intended.
yeah.
Like I got like
Yeah.
3 different ideas of how to make it work,
Yeah.
and find a way to make it cost effective.
So-
to answer all 3 questions.
Yeah,
Other than the gender part, I can't fix that.
I think there's one thing cooking, which is you talk to champions
Mhm.
and you ask them how they apply their ethic that made them champions to the business of networking
Right.
to continue successfully.
Correct.
The other possibility, and this is maybe your third thing,
Mhm.
is people unrelated to sports who have become champions in their business.
Mhm.
And how are the things they have done to get there analogous to the things that Kerry and Mike Jones have done? So when we were thinking about, is this appealing to women, one of the people that popped to mind, there's this new restaurant in town called Vicia, run by a husband and wife team, and they've been winning every single award that you possibly can win. They just were named the second best new restaurant in St. Louis, and it's the wife, Tara, who kind of runs the business. And I eat over there a lot because it's right across the street from my office. And what I've recognized is that she's unbelievable at networking. I was standing there talking to her one day, and this food writer came in who she'd met one time at some conference years earlier. And she said, I got to go for a second.
Mhm.
And she went and did all the stuff that you're teaching people to do in terms of making connections, and that's what's made her in this restaurant a champion, not the fact that her husband, on top of the fact that her husband cooks unbelievably great food.
Right.
So that's a really interesting topic. And you guys don't have to do this, but if you can think of somebody that you would want on a panel like this that might be locally accessible, that would appeal to you at $100 or $150 ticket price, who would it be?
Katie's Pizza.
Who?
Katie's Pizzeria.
Really? You'd pay $150?
We might be switching this to food
Well,
instead.
that's part of this.
I mean, if it's part of, I mean,
Right.
Does she interested in-
they're killing it.
Do you just want to meet her? Is that?
No, I mean, I know enough of a summary of a story that I'd love to learn more about that story and that process.
And when you
I
talk,
can tell you some behind the scenes.
when you got your whatever his thing.
This is a great question. Who else is a great question? Would people want to, in St. Louis, would this room like to meet on a panel?
And forget $97, just.
Right.
It doesn't. Yeah.
It
just-
is the prices.
Who would you? Who
I
would
agree.
you?
The
Who would
market-
you want to
the
come
market
see?
Not be food related.
A champion who resonates with Breakfast with Champions. Somebody in business, somebody in sports, somebody that's very prominent in St. Louis scenes.
So what if we?
Prince EA.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That guy's awesome.
Who the heck is that?
Prince EA?
Oh, George.
He's amazing.
I was hoping you were going to be able to connect us with him.
I will.
I mean, we're setting up the
It's on my
people that
short
you're
list.
looking for to get on.
This
the
is
site,
a cool
right?
topic. This is
So
really
if we had
This
so if we had Carrie and Mike and two of these people.
No, Carrie. You see, I don't want to influence the crowd, but I don't want to meet Carrie.
I
don't-
can't imagine you even paying for Carrie.
Right.
But that's,
Go ahead.
He's a great guy.
he is a
Right.
very nice guy.
Go ahead. I got you. Go ahead.
Come on,
So,
give me some more.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, he's.
In the food world,
So there's Olive and Oak too. There's
Hmm?
the
We know
two
those.
two families. They both had sons that
I can get. I
Yeah,
can,
congestive. What was it? It was a heart disease.
they both have a. Yeah, I don't know.
They lost
exactly.
their kids,
Yeah.
and so what they did is they came together and opened this restaurant. Their kids' names were Olive and Oak, and they came together and opened this restaurant. It's incredible food, incredible story, incredible people, and they
You got a
opened
connection
a,
there?
Yeah, I have a connection.
How about Billy Bob's Teeth person? He goes on the circus a little bit. The guy who came up, the
Terry
Teeth.
Lammers knows.
Terry did
Yeah.
his.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, Pokey Lafarge.
Oh, yeah.
I like it.
Uh-huh.
Pokey Lafarge, that's great.
So ask you, who do you want to meet in St. Louis? Who's somebody that you want to listen to? Who's somebody that you want to take advice from? That you'd want to. Gary Vaynerchuk is like the hottest person on the planet right now.
sure he is.
Who's the Gary Vaynerchuk of St. Louis? Is
That's
there
a
one?
good question.
Chef Hyken?
Who's the MFVO
Shep's
guy?
good.
The
Chef's awesome.
Shep's awesome. I'd add Shep to that list.
Shep.
Chef is.
Shep's a magician.
What about Dad's Edge?
Who? Dad. Larry.
How about John Ruhlin?
John Ruhlin be good.
That's definitely a network.
Who's the
Yeah, that's a good
MF CEO?
Oh, Andy Frisella.
Andy Frisella.
How about Dave Stewart?
Yeah.
Jim McKelvey? Yep.
How about that?
Are we filming right now?
No, we're recording a podcast though.
Can we tweet?
Yeah,
What's
I
that?
wouldn't put Jim on this panel. I mean,
Did he put a team together and then walk away from him?
What about his counterpart?
Ice Hunt?
it just
Five?
Why not? Thanks for getting that one, Mike.
we're
So,
definitely not filming right now. Jim,
We're not filming, we're recording.
yeah. I don't think Jim would do it. And I went to grade school with Jim and know him pretty well. Jim's about Jim.
Yeah,
Yeah.
gotcha.
So-
And it makes sense.
Yeah.
I think it's an interesting story with Third Degree Glass, and
Totally interesting story. Totally, I agree. But Jim's about Jim. He wouldn't come to this with the ethic that I think we want.
That's fair enough.
So Chris Zimmerman, president of the Blues. He'll do it. Cardinals, right? I can get Zimmerman.
Who else?
John
Other
Taylor.
athletes?
Yeah,
Who's there?
John.
Jeez. Set the bar high. Go ahead. So,
What about your buddy, who's Mike Roberts? I mean, he was a successful weatherman. Like, yay, nay? Is he a speaker? I'm just trying to
Probably
think
wants
of.
to be.
Is Mike Roberts a buddy of yours? You know, he did our.
Sherry and
what about Randy?
Sherry introduced me to him.
Oh,
I
I
met
like
him
to have
yesterday.
Randy Carricker.
Randy Carricker would be good.
Is that the Stray
No, this is he's like a sports savant. He always wins on the fast lane. He always wins.
Nathaniel Reed.
Who is that? That sounds.
Got the bakery in De Pere. He's a world-class
Yep.
pastry chef. The guy's story is incredible.
Have you been there?
Oh, yeah.
What's it called?
Reed's American.
I've eaten
Table.
everything he
This is incredible.
Oh, it might be Kirkwood.
I love that place.
Okay. It's on.
I didn't eat
No,
that.
I like the idea of you could do
It's on-
different
it's
events.
on-
like
it's
a
on
sports
Manchester
theme
right
one,
before
you could
Guy
do, yeah,
Road.
food theme one.
It's a small
brewing
brewery.
theme one.
It's fantastic.
We're bringing
I-
the
I'm
Alabama.
I'm
doing
gonna
that with everyone here in
all
what's
the
this week?
alternates.
You ever heard of David
Yeah.
Seifman Garland?
We'll
Rise
to the
part
top?
of one.
Yeah.
Oh, he's a character.
Yeah.
You know, I was already there.
Oh, yeah.
I got to know
You could-
him
you could
in
do
his
this once a
house
month
when they
and
first
have a few
started out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
it's
they
Detroit
set the
craft
world on
regulars.
fire,
Yeah,
especially
sure.
Lewis,
Yep.
wow.
Dave Bailey.
Bailey
has 7 restaurants.
Yep.
And they were just really building their own thing.
This is not, this is too small.
What are other
Does he still live in
athletes?
St. Louis?
Brett Hull,
I think so.
Yeah.
Seaworth. I don't have talk.
He's not
To
with
West
us.
End.
Cam Jansen, he's a speaker.
Yeah, you could do Cam. Cam's got his radio show.
That's true.
Cam would be all for it.
Matheny speaks a lot, don't
Do you know Cam?
Yeah.
I know his. I guess they're not even engaged yet. Is they?
Yeah.
Are they engaged?
Oh no, I don't know.
Kate?
If it,
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah,
I went to high school. with Kate.
Yeah, I know Kate too.
he? I honestly don't know what's going on.
Get a little bit away from you.
No, I'm fine.
All
I'm excited.
Well, it's an interesting idea.
Joe
I
Edwards?
know it's.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Joe Edwards.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Joe's about Joe.
Yeah.
So we'll do Joe and Jim
It's a
McKellar.
Denmark
Yeah.
thing.
They'll out-talk each other about themselves.
Tell us about yourself.
Well, I have a ponytail.
All right.
I wrap.
Yep. Go ahead and take a picture of that, and we'll.
Okay.
I'll take a picture of it. But I think you're on to something with your.
There's a couple.